Now let us move on to the next technical session by Dr. Pramod Pillai. Let me introduce Dr. Pramod. Dr. Pramod Pillai is an associate professor and physical chemist in the Department of Chemistry at Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, IISER, Pune. Dr. Pillai obtained his PhD in chemistry in 2008 under the supervision of Professor K. George Thomas at CSIR NIST, Trivandrum. Prior to joining IISER Pune in June 2014, Dr. Pillai was a postdoctoral fellow at Northwestern University, USA, and an Alexander von Humboldt postdoctoral fellow in Dortmund, Germany. Currently, Dr. Pillai's research at IISER Pune is focused on controlling the interplay of forces to improve and impart newer properties at the nanoscale. Some of the properties of interest includes light harvesting, catalyst, and self-assembly in hybrid nanomaterials. With this short introduction, I will welcome Dr. Pramod for his talk.
Good morning to all. I hope my slides are visible to you.
Yes.
Just a moment. Sajid, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah, so good morning to all. Thank you, Sajid, for your kind words of introduction. And it's nice to see you after a long time. And so so at the outset, I would like to thank the organizing committee of EFCS 2020 for giving me an opportunity to share some of our research in this platform. A special thanks to Professor Pradeep for initiating such an impactful seminar series at Farook College, which is directly impacting the students and the teacher community. So this takes me back to one more important seminar series that is generally conducted in Kerala. So this is the FCBS, which is Foundation for Capacity Building in Science. I'm sure that some of the teachers who are sitting in this audience are well aware of FCBS. So FCBS has played an important role in motivating many students from Kerala to take up science as their career, and I was one of the beneficiaries. And so it's a fantastic organization, and the FCBS is basically the brainchild of Professor N.V. George, who was one of the finest organic photochemists in India. So Professor N.V. George played an important role in uplifting the science in Kerala to the national and international level as well. So unfortunately, we lost him in last December. So I would like to dedicate this talk to Professor N.V. George. So coming to the scientific part, at IISER Pune, we are working in the area of nanoscience, where we are interested in developing new design principles to improve the optoelectronic properties of nanomaterials. So some of the properties of our interest include self-assembly, catalysis, and photophysics. And over the last 4 to 5 years, our group has realized that controlling the interplay of forces and interactions at the nanoscale is an important strategy, not only to improve the existing properties, but it can also help in solving some of the long existing challenges in the area of nanoscience. So, so how to control these interparticle interactions in nanoparticle? The best way is to control their surface chemistry. And this talk is all about showing the impact of such finely tuned interactions on the light harvesting properties of nanomaterials. So I will, before I go to the research work, I would like to give a brief summary of the importance and challenges associated with photocatalysis. So as we know, photocatalysis is a process where the sunlight is used to catalyze various chemical and physical transformations. And in the last 3 to 4 decades, researchers have realized that sun is going to be one of the important sources of energy to meet our present and future energy demands. And it has been predicted that, or it has been estimated that the amount of sunlight which is falling on the Earth's surface for in 1 hour is good enough to meet our energy demand for 1 year. Or in other words, if one can cover 0.1 percentage of Earth's surface with a moderately efficient solar cell, that would be good enough to satisfy our present need. So at once, these values may seem to be very easy to achieve, but that is not the case. Having said that, researchers have made a commendable progress in this direction. For example, now the cost of energy from solar source is equal or is comparable to the cost of energy that is produced from fossil fuels like coal. So it is a commendable feat that people have achieved. So let's try to see what is the energy that is stored in sunlight. Okay, so if you take the UV visible region of sunlight, one can easily estimate the amount of energy that is stored in a particular wavelength of light. For example, 1 mole of 200 nanometer light will contain something like 600 kilojoule per mole. So what are these values? Can these values be used to do some important chemical or physical transformation? And the answer is yes, because this is a table which summarizes where the bond energies of various chemical bonds that we see across us. And this table clearly tells that most of these bonds can be broken by sunlight with the help of appropriate catalysts. So this proves the importance of sunlight in energy research. This is just one example. Like this, one can correlate sunlight to many other energy related applications. So in a broader sense, the energy from the sun can be used to trigger 3 type of processes. The one is the change in temperature, which we have historically mankind has used this temperature change for various applications. And the other 2 important processes that the sun can trigger is the movement of energy and electron through the material, which forms the basis of light matter interaction. And as any other area of science, energy research is also inspired by nature. Still, the natural process of photosynthesis remains to be the benchmark for research scientists to understand and mimic various processes that are happening in photosynthesis. So over the last 2 to 3 decades of research, people were able to come up with what is called Z scheme, which represent or which explains the various electron transfer steps that are happening in photosynthesis. I will not go into the details of this Z scheme because now it has become a textbook material. But one point that I want to make here is that there is no single material which does photosynthesis. Rather, nature has assembled a series of champion material in a precise fashion so that the efficiency of photosynthesis can be maximized. So this is what we believe in our group. We believe that development of new champion material is one thing, but how to assemble it in a precise fashion is equally or sometimes more challenging to achieve. And this is the challenge that energy researchers are interested to tackle. And this is where various covalent and non-covalent interactions can come into picture. So in our group, we are trying to develop new materials for light harvesting, and at the same time, we are trying to see the effect of such non-covalent interactions on their light harvesting properties. So there are many materials that has been proposed. I'm sorry, I don't know why these things are coming. I'm sorry for that. Oh, it has gone now. So there are many materials that have been proposed to mimic photosynthesis in an efficient way. Among them, nanomaterials have achieved a special feat because of their unique size and shape dependent optoelectronic properties. So in this slide, I have tried to summarize various processes that can occur in a nanoparticle when light interacts with a nanomaterial. So the nanoparticle here can be considered as metallic or semiconductor in nature. As in any other material, the first step of light matter interaction here is also the absorption of light, which leads to the photoexcitation of the nanoparticle, and this generates electrons and holes in the material. So in the case of a metal nanoparticle, this light absorption occurs through the phenomena called surface plasmon resonance, and in the case of a semiconductor nanoparticle, it occurs through a process called quantum confinement effect. So now let's try to see what are the important decay pathways that this photo-excited nanoparticle can undergo. One of the important decay pathway is the emission from a nanoparticle, where the excess energy of the electron is dissipated in the form of light, and this is what we call it as luminescence, and this can find applications in various energy transfer studies, display devices, and sensors, and so on. The second relaxation pathway is scattering, where the entire stored energy in the nanoparticle is concentrated and scattered from the surface of a nanoparticle. Such scattering processes can find applications in enhancement effects, both near field and far field, or surface enhanced Raman, imaging, and etc. So these two relaxation pathways are radiative in nature, and then there are other sets of non-radiative relaxation pathways where the excited electrons and the holes can be extracted out of the nanoparticle. For example, in the case of a metal nanoparticle, when you excite it with a proper light, you generate excited electrons which have energy higher than their Fermi energy level. So such electrons are called as hot electrons. And in the case of a semiconductor nanoparticle, these electrons and holes are residing in conduction and valence band respectively. So one can effectively extract these electrons and holes out of the nanoparticle to carry various electron transfer reactions, including photocatalysis, solar cells, and other photovoltaic applications. But however, if we are not able to extract these charge carriers in a reasonable amount of time, these hot electrons can interact with the phonons present in the material, and the excess energy is dissipated in the form of heat. And this process is called as local heating. In the case of metal nanoparticle, this process is called plasmonic heating, and which has a lot of applications in various thermoplasmonic areas like photodynamic therapy, using the plasmon heating for physical and chemical transformations. So when you compare with a normal absorbing molecule or a light harvesting molecule like chromophores, organic chromophores, or inorganic chromophores, some of the processes, especially scattering, hot electron chemistry, and plasmon heating, they are specific to materials at the nanoscale. And all these processes can occur simultaneously when a nanoparticle absorbs light. And depending on the nature of the nanoparticle and nature of the surroundings, one of these relaxation processes can dominate. So if you see the area of nanoparticles, our understanding in hot electron chemistry and plasmonic heating is still limited, and active research is going on these two areas to improve our understanding. So one of the major challenges in this light harvesting with nanoparticle is that to identify the factors which can control these various relaxation pathways, so that one can focus on a particular relaxation pathway to maximize the efficiency of a particular system. So this is the biggest challenge in the area of light harvesting with nanoparticles. So now let's try to see what are the now let's try to see what are the different factors that affect a nanoparticle in the interaction with light. So this is a general scheme of a nanoparticle. It has two main parts. One is the core and the other one is the ligand. So most of the light harvesting properties of nanomaterials are dependent on the core properties like absorption cross-section, diffusion length, defects, crystallinity, shape, and composition. And this has been well documented in the literature. When you come to the ligands, there are again three sub parts for ligand. One is the binding group, which attaches the ligand on the surface of a nanoparticle. Then you have a spacer, which controls the distance between the nanoparticle and the surrounding. And the last one is a terminal group, which gives the stability to a nanoparticle in a particular solvent. So traditionally, it was believed that surface ligands can only play a secondary role in light harvesting, especially by just giving a particular stability in a particular medium. But in the recent research has proved that the surface ligands can be transformed to play major role in light harvesting as well. Specifically, this terminal group of surface ligands can play an unconventional role by bringing various forces and interactions, especially non-covalent interactions, into action, which will decide how the electrons and energy from a photo-excited nanoparticle can be efficiently extracted from the core to the surrounding. So these surface ligands play an important role, and in today's talk, I hope that I will be able to convince some of you that dressing up a nanoparticle with an appropriate ligand is important in light harvesting, especially in the area of photocatalysis. So these are some of the non-covalent interactions that we are interested in. So we work with van der Waals forces, hydrogen bonding, electrostatic and bridging interaction. And as I have told in the previous slide, all these non-covalent interactions can be varied by varying the surface chemistry of the nanoparticle. So from a chemist's point of view, all these interactions are originating from atoms and molecules. So if you can organize the atoms and molecules around a nanoparticle, then you may be able to control these various non-covalent interactions. And this is exactly what we do in our group. So we work with a series of nanomaterials starting from metallic to semiconductor to magnetic of different morphologies. Depending on our application or depending on our studies, we choose a particular nanoparticle. For example, if you are interested in the plasmonic property, we go with metal nanoparticles. And if you are interested in the luminescence property, we go with semiconductor particles and so on. So once we decide what is the nanoparticle that we want to work with, our next challenge is to functionalize a ligand of our choice without compromising the inherent properties of nanoparticles. And this is extremely very challenging, especially in the case of luminescence property. Very often people see that when they functionalize a ligand of their choice, they lose the inherent property of the nanoparticle. So this is one challenge that we are trying to tackle in our group. So in summary, our group research is mainly focused on surface engineering and ligand chemistry and try to see how these non-covalent interactions can influence various optoelectronic properties of materials. So now we wanted to test our hypothesis in well-studied areas of nanoscience so that the impact of our hypothesis will be high. So for that, we have selected three important properties. One is the aggregation, other one is the catalysis, and the third one is the photophysics. So in the area of self-assembly, our aggregation, we have seen that the surface ligands can play a decisive role in dictating the thermodynamics of self-assembly. What I mean by thermodynamics is that this surface ligands decides whether a nanoparticle will form a self-assembled structure under an equilibrium condition or under a non-equilibrium condition. So this is the power of surface ligands in self-assembly. Similarly, in the area of photophysics, we were able to fine-tune various photophysical processes like Foster resonance energy transfer and electron transfer processes in quantum dots, and such a fine-tuning in the interparticle interactions helped us to create very highly luminescent multicolor photo patterns as shown in this particular figure. So, but in today's talk, I will be not discussing about the aggregation and photophysics. I will be more focusing on the role of surface chemistry in the catalytic and the photocatalytic properties of nanomaterials. So now let's try to discuss why one should work with the nanoparticles as a catalyst. One of the important reasons is the surface to volume ratio. As you reduce the size of the nanoparticle, what you are doing is you are increasing the surface to volume ratio. This means that as you reduce the size, most of the atoms which are available in the material can be used for catalysis. So it increases the efficiency of a particular catalytic reaction. And the second reason is that when you reduce the size of atoms with respect to bulk to single atom, you increase the surface free energy of these atoms, which again can have a positive impact on their catalytic properties. And this has been experimentally proved maybe 20 years before. So this is one example where people have studied the effect of size of gold nanoparticles on the catalytic oxidation of carbon monoxide. So as you reduce the size of the nanoparticle, the catalytic efficiency is increasing. Similarly, this has been extended to other nanoparticles as well, for example, palladium nanoparticles. And along with improving the rate, the catalyst can also help in reducing the temperature at which a particular reaction is occurring. So this is an example where when you reduce the size of a rhodium nanoparticle, you can perform the catalysis at a much lower temperature when compared to a bigger size nanoparticle. So this is a general thing. The size effect is a general thing which is uniform for all materials at the nanoscale. But there is something special for plasmonic nanoparticles. That means metallic nanoparticles. And the important process in the plasmonic nanoparticle is the surface plasmon resonance. This is in a very simple word, surface plasmon resonance is nothing but a collective oscillation of plasma of electrons under the excitation of electromagnetic radiation. This essentially means that the entire electron in the metal can get excited with the help of the electromagnetic radiation. And because of this reason, the molecular extinction coefficient of plasmonic nanoparticles are very high when compared to a normal organic or inorganic chromophore. For example, if you take best of the best dyes that you know, that will have a molar extinction point in the range of 10 raised to 4 to 10 raised to 5 per molar per centimeter. Whereas this plasmonic nanoparticles are the best material to exhibit the highest molar extinction coefficient that has been prepared by mankind. So this is the impact of surface plasmon resonance. So this essentially means that the entire electrons which are present in the plasmonic nanoparticle can be used to carry chemical transformation. So this is the main point here. So this plasmonic nanoparticle is a storage of huge number of electrons which can be excited with appropriate light. And if you can do a proper reaction, you can use all these electrons to carry forward chemical transformation. So this is one advantage of working with plasmonic nanoparticles that you don't see with a non-plasmonic materials. So initial area of plasmonic catalysis, people were not 100% sure whether you can effectively use gold nanoparticle or a silver nanoparticle as a efficient photocatalyst. So they were trying to make heterostructures with semiconductor nanoparticles like titanium dioxide, and they will excite the nanoparticle. You will get the hot electrons. These hot electrons will get transferred to the titanium dioxide, and it will improve the catalytic efficiency of titanium nanoparticles. So basically, in these kind of studies, gold nanoparticles were used as an antenna. But recently, people have started to use plasmonic nanoparticles as a sole photocatalyst for various chemical transformations. So this is an example where the authors have used gold nanoparticle to break hydrogen, which is very highly energy requiring step, and you can break with the help of hot electrons. This is another example where people have used gold nanoparticles to reduce carbon dioxide to some value-added products like methane or ethane. So because in all these examples, gold nanoparticles are used as a sole photocatalyst. So this area of plasmonic catalysis is gearing up, and it has a lot of future. So this is one area that we are really interested in. So now let's try to discuss about various challenges that are associated with plasmonic catalysis. As I have told in one of the introduction slides, the first step in light matter interaction with nanoparticle is the excitation, which results in the formation of a hot electron and hole. So now, in order to do some catalysis, you need to extract these electrons and holes efficiently from the core. Otherwise, they will recombine. And the dynamics of this hot electron chemistry is very, very fast. So this is what is summarized in this figure. I will not go into the detail, but the bottom line here is that within few picoseconds, like something like 1 picosecond, these hot electrons can recombine to form heat. So this means you have very, very limited time to take these hot electrons from the nanoparticle to perform various chemical transformations. So this is a challenge in the area of photocatalysis. Initial days, people were trying to attach a semiconductor so that the charge transfer can happen to the semiconductor, and that will stabilize the lifetime of the charge separated species. But these days, people are interested to use plasmonic nanoparticle as a sole photocatalyst. And this is where the dynamics of hot electron chemistry is going to play an important role. The second important challenge with nanoparticle catalysis is the surface ligands. As we all know, catalysis is a surface phenomenon. You need the surface of the catalyst exposed to the reactants. Then only the reaction will happen. And this is where the surface ligands can play an adverse role. For example, it can sterically hinder the approach of reactants from the solution to the surface of the nanoparticle catalyst. The second thing is, most of the ligands that people use, they are insulating in nature because they are organic molecules generally, and that too non-aromatic organic molecules. So they are insulators, and they can hinder the transfer of electrons from the nanoparticle to the reactants. So this is known as ligand poisoning in the area of nanoparticles. So what is the way out here? One of the ways is to work with ligand-free nanoparticles where you don't have any traditional ligand. So these nanoparticles will be stabilized with some small molecules like some hydroxide or some sulfide ions, and they can be used for catalysis. So this is a very good strategy, but the problem is during the catalysis, the stability of the nanoparticles are getting compromised because you don't have a traditional ligand which will stabilize them in a solution state. So other way is to do supported catalysis, where you take a nanoparticle and you support it onto a two-dimensional surface like graphene or zinc oxide or TiO2 and perform the catalysis. This is again very attractive strategy, but here the problem is that only a portion of the catalyst is available for the catalysis, because a big portion of the catalyst is getting adsorbed to the surface and only half of the surface is available for catalysis. So the ideal way in the area of nanoscience is to perform catalysis with ligands on the surface of the nanoparticle. And this is the biggest challenge in the area of nanoparticle catalysis. So what we came up is, we came up with a strategy of catalyst reactant interaction. So what we have come up is that if you can increase the interaction between the catalyst and the reactant molecule, then you may be able to bring the reactants close to the surface of the nanoparticle, and in this process you can control their or improve their catalytic properties. So yesterday we had an excellent talk from Professor Narasimhan, where she was mentioning about the impact of stickiness of nanoparticle in catalysis. So here what we are doing is we are attracting the substrates to the surface of the nanoparticles, so that the distance between the nanoparticle and the reactants can be reduced, and in that process you will increase the local concentration of the reactants around the catalyst, and this can have a positive impact on the catalysis. So our idea is on substrate channeling. So we are interested in channeling the substrates towards the catalyst by playing around some non-covalent interaction. So in this case, we have selected electrostatic interaction. And the reason for the electrostatic interaction is as follows. So most of the reactions that we are interested is in water. So in water, most of the molecules will be charged. So if you can control the surface potential around a nanoparticle, you can control this catalyst substrate interaction. For example, if you are working with a negatively charged substrate, and if you can make positively charged nanoparticles, because of the strong electrostatic attraction, all the negatively charged substrates will be, or reactants will be attracted towards the surface of the nanoparticle, and this will help in improving the catalysis. So this is the simple hypothesis that we came up with to decorate the nanoparticle with appropriate ligands. So now we want to test this hypothesis in the area of catalysis. So there are generally two model reactions that people work in nanocatalysis to prove their hypothesis. One of the reaction is the passive participation, where the nanoparticle is not directly involved in catalysis, rather it gives it provides its surface for the absorption of reactants on the surface, and it helps in the mediation of electron transfer from between the reactants. And in this case, you need to have an additional reducing agent like sodium borohydrate. So one of the classical reactions here is the nitrophenol reduction to aminophenol in the presence of borohydrates. And there is another class of model reaction which we call it as active catalysis, where the nanoparticles are actively involved in catalysis. So here there is no additional reducing agent. The hot electrons which are present in the plasmonic nanoparticle, they are used for the reduction and oxidation reaction. So this is much more challenging because there is no additional reducing agent. So these are the two classical model reactions that people try to test with their new hypothesis, so that a new hypothesis can be established. So we have tested our hypothesis in both this reaction. First, I will discuss about the passive participation, where we have selected the model reaction of nitrophenol reduction to aminophenol. So this is a model reaction for many reasons. Some of them is that this reaction will only happen in the presence of catalyst. That means if there is no catalyst, this reaction will not happen. And the mechanism of this reaction is well understood. And here again, the molecules are charged. So if you see under reaction condition, there is a lot of negative charge on the reactant. So we can use our electrostatic interactions to govern the catalysis. And another important fact is that you can study this catalysis easily by spectroscopic techniques, because the starting material is having a yellow color, which will decrease when it converts into the current. So it can be easily monitored using spectroscopic studies. And the mechanism, as I have told, is well understood. It follows a Langmuir-Hinshelwood mechanism. Again, I'm not going into the detail, but what it means is that this mechanism tells is that both the reagents like borohydrate and the nitrophenol gets adsorbed on the surface of the nanoparticle, and then there is a hydrate ion transfer. So this indicates that the attraction of these reactants to the nanoparticle surface is crucial. And for this reason, this becomes an ideal model reaction for our studies. So these are the results. So when we don't have any catalyst, the spectrum that we obtained is the black one. So we don't see any change in the reactant peak. And when we have a nanoparticle with negatively charged surface, that means unfavorable surface chemistry, there is negligible catalysis. But the moment we use a positively charged nanoparticle with a favorable surface chemistry, within few minutes, we see that the complete reactant has converted into the product. And the important part here is that we don't see any characteristic absorption peak for nanoparticles. So people who are working with gold nanoparticles, they know that gold nanoparticle has a strong absorption around 520 nanometer. Here you can see that there is no strong peak corresponding to the nanoparticle, which means that the amount of nanoparticle catalyst that we are using is very, very less. In fact, we have calculated that we are able to do this catalysis with 25 picomolar of catalyst within 5 minutes. So this is the impact of surface chemistry. By appropriate surface chemistry, you can reduce the amount of catalyst that is required, and you can control the catalytic performance. So once we got the initial result, we did the detailed kinetic studies by monitoring the change in the absorption of the reactant, and we came up with a pseudo first order kinetics. So this is an important data which shows that even up to 1 mole percentage of the catalyst with an unfavorable surface chemistry is not able to make any catalytic transformation. Whereas with a 1 mole percentage of favorable catalyst, we are able to finish the catalysis within few minutes, like 2 to 3 minutes. So this is the power of surface chemistry. So what we have achieved here is that we can design the nanoparticle in such a way that the same nanoparticle can act as a catalyst. At the same time, it can act as a non-catalyst. So this is a unique information which was not available in the literature. So what we have done is we have converted the same nanoparticle as a catalyst or as a non-catalyst. So we believe that the ligands that are present on the surface of the nanoparticle are acting as gatekeepers in controlling the catalytic reactions. So then we went to the another class of reaction which I have explained earlier, which is the photocatalysis, where the nanoparticles are actively participating in catalysis. So one of the model reaction for this is the 1 electron reduction of ferricyanate to ferrocyanate, and here we use ethanol as the Hall scavenger. So the mechanism is as follows: you excite the nanoparticle, you generate the hot electrons and hot holes. The electrons will be used for the reduction, and the holes will be consumed by the Hall scavenger, thereby regenerating the catalyst, so that we can do it for multiple cycles. So when we started this project, this was the best data which was available in the literature. So what you see here is the absorption of the gold nanoparticle, and this is the absorption of Fe3+. So when the reduction is happening, you can see that there is a minute, very, very negligible decrease in the absorption band. And based on this decrease, they have come up with all electron transfer theory. So we thought that let's try to use our hypothesis here. So this is the summary of our results. So when we use when there is no catalyst, there is no reduction, and when there is a catalyst with an unfavorable surface chemistry, still the reduction is negligible. This is similar to what has been reported. But when we used our nanoparticle with favorable surface chemistry, we were able to see a drastic decrease in the peak of the reactant, along with the emergence of the peak corresponding to Fe2+. And we have also characterized this using standard fusion blue test. So the impact here is that with the favorable surface chemistry, we were able to see an appreciable catalysis which people were not able to observe. And to prove that this is electrostatically driven, we have varied the surface chemistry of the nanoparticle in such a way that we can go from 100% negative charge to 100% positive charge, along with some mixed charge ratio. So what we found is that as we increase the favorable surface chemistry, we are increasing the rate of the reaction. And the important thing is this particular hypothesis is applicable to different temperature range that we have studied. So the highlight here is that by introducing only 20% of favorable interaction, that is electrostatic attraction, we were able to transform a non-catalyst to a decent catalyst. So this is the strength of surface chemistry that we are trying to bring out in the area of catalysis. So then, motivated by this, we have extended this to other nanoparticles as well. This is an example for semiconductor nanoparticles, which are called as quantum dots. So here the electron transfer theory is little different. We don't have a hot electrons here. Rather, we have a conduction band electron and valence band holes, where upon the photoexcitation, these conduction band electrons can be used for the reduction reaction, and the holes can be scavenged by a hole scattering. So the same thing as in the plasmonic metal nanoparticle, but here we don't have any hot electrons. So here again we found that there is a strong effect of surface chemistry on the reduction of ferricyanide. In fact, we were able to convert it into a dip catalyst mode where we were able to absorb these quantum dots on a filter paper, and we were able to recycle this for many cycles. So this data shows that there is no decrease in the catalytic activity even after 5 things. So these materials are very compatible, and you can work it in a homogeneous condition or a heterogeneous condition. And during the studies, we realized that these semiconductor nanoparticles are a better catalyst than plasmonic materials. So we were interested to know whether these semiconductor nanoparticles can be also used for performing some organic transformation. So this is a classical CC bond formation reaction, which is reported by Macmillan and co-workers. So generally here, people use photocatalysts, which are summarized here. These are basically inorganic complex-based photocatalysts. So some of you might have studied in your inorganic chemistry, like ruthenium tris bipyridine and iridium tris polypyridine. So these are standard catalysts that people use for performing this carbon-carbon formation. So what we thought is that semiconductor nanoparticles or quantum dots, they have some additional advantages over this traditional catalyst. For example, they are highly photostable, and they are easy to synthesize, and they are stable in ambient conditions. Because some of these inorganic complexes, they are very unstable in ambient conditions. Whereas semiconductor nanoparticles, especially quantum dots, they are highly photostable, and they have a very tunable surface area. So depending on the catalysis, you can tune their surface, especially with respect to the surface chemistry. So this is the reason why we wanted to test whether these materials can be used as a as an efficient catalyst, and this is the result. And we found that our quantum dots are equally good as these traditional catalysts. So we are not claiming that they are better, but what we are claiming is they are equally good as the traditional catalyst. So this is the mechanism of catalytic cycles. I am not going into the details. So the conclusion here is that you can use semiconductor nanoparticle as a potential replacement for traditional inorganic based catalysts to do organic transformation. So this is one area that we are developing. And this is the last part of the talk, where we wanted to test our hypothesis in a more important reaction. So we have selected the 2-electron reduction of NAD plus to NADH. So you might have studied in your chemical biology that NADH is a very good biomolecule which transport electrons in different biological reactions. So the regeneration of NADH is a biologically important task, and it is an important task in artificial biocatalysis as well. So generally, these kind of catalysis are done by gold nanoparticles and other semiconductor nanoparticles. But if you see the state of the art, these catalytic systems are very complex. For example, this is the catalyst. In addition to the catalyst, they have antenna molecule like sensitizer molecule like eosine, and then they have co-catalyst like some inorganic complexes. Then only this kind of nanoparticles can be used as a catalyst, and this increases the complexity of the catalyst. So our idea was to decrease the complexity by using our hypothesis. So just to remind you, what is our hypothesis? Our hypothesis is based on the electrostatic attraction. So in the case of NAD+, there are 2 phosphate groups which are negatively charged. So we thought of exploring this electrostatic attraction. So we functionalize our nanoparticle with our oppositely charged oppositely charged ligands, and so that there can be a strong electrostatic attraction between this reactant and the catalyst. In that way, we will be introducing favorable interaction. So this was our idea, and this is a summary of our result. So as we increase the favorable interaction, we were able to see an appreciable catalyst with only gold nanoparticles. So here you don't have any co-catalyst, any sensitizer. It's a sole photocatalysis with gold nanoparticles. So this is the power of surface chemistry. So what we have achieved here is a turnover frequency of 400 per nanoparticle per minute, which is one of the best reported values with plasmonic materials. So this is what this is what we are trying to develop in our group, that by playing the surface chemistry of a nanoparticle, we can control the catalytic property of a nanoparticle, and this can be extended to mimic the artificial photosynthesis. So in future, we want to extend this to other materials, and also we would like to control the product formation. So what we have controlled here is the transfer of number of electrons, which essentially can have an impact in the product selection axis as well. So this is some of the areas that we are going forward. So now I would like to conclude my talk. So what I have shown you today is a brief summary of the power of surface chemistry in controlling the catalytic property of nanoparticles. So by achieving a precise electrostatic attraction between the catalyst and the substrate, we were able to solve the long existing challenge of ligand poisoning. And we believe that this kind of strategy of interplay of interactions can help in improving various optoelectronic properties of nanomaterials. So the take-home message here is that surface engineering and ligand chemistry is important and can have an immense impact on various optoelectronic properties of nanoscience. So before I end, I should conclude by giving some acknowledgements. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge my group members. So whatever I have showed here is because of the hard work and dedication of the students. In fact, so these are the kind of students that any supervisor would like to work with. And I must say that I was fortunate to get such a talented students in the beginning of my independent career. So I'm thankful for them. And I also thank the Department of Chemistry and ISO Pune for their support, and also various funding agencies for believing in our idea and supporting our research, especially DST SCRB, which has supported our project on catalysis. So finally, I would like to thank all of you for your kind attention, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Now it's a time for discussion.
Well, let me start by asking a question, Pramod.
Yeah, sure.
Beautiful talk, wonderful delivery as usual. And you've been so crisp and direct to the point. Very nice. I enjoyed it. At least the later portion, I was not there in the beginning a few minutes because of another conference.
Okay.
So question is that anything is about presenting the surface appropriately.
Yes.
And that can get you turnover numbers or whatever. Anything that involves surfaces is found to fail.
Yes.
I mean, they're bound to fail because of various kinds of adsorption. Surface is passivation, fouling, all of this. So how would you eventually convert all this knowledge of a well-oriented surface where surface is active? How would you take it to something realistic?
So what we are planning and what we are doing at the moment is to combine our idea with supported catalyst, like in a flow reactor. So what we are looking for is we will use our surface chemistry to have a preferential adsorption on a surface, like so that it becomes heterogeneous. And at the same time, we will have, so when it is heterogeneous, then the stability of the nanoparticle is not an issue. And so we can control the density of the ligands in such a way that there will be a precise attraction of the substrates, and at the same time, much of the surface is still exposed for catalysis. And in that way, we can do this catalysis in a recyclable way, which is what one would expect. So here we don't need much amount of the catalyst also. The same substrate in a flow setup can be used for multiple times. So this is what we are trying to develop. So we are trying to combine our idea with the substrated catalysis. So in that way, we believe that the surface will also be available, and the drafting of this this attachment of the ligands can be also controlled. The density of the ligands can also be controlled.
The membrane people are also faced with this problem.
Yes.
And they address this in a slightly different fashion, wherein they have on the membrane, if there is a bacterial fouling or whatever agent, there is an anti-bac fouling agent. If there is a chemically fouling agent, there is something that will prevent that. So is there some way that your research could have on a particle multiple things of this kind with different functions?
Yeah, that is, in principle, that is possible. You can attach multiple functionality on a single nanoparticle, but to achieve, as you are well aware, to achieve that in a precise numbers or precise geometry, it is still challenging. So what we have achieved is we can achieve two different types of ligand on the same nanoparticle. This is something we are able to do that. So for example, in our nanoparticles, I don't know whether you saw the slide or not, and maybe I can go to that slide quickly. So what we are able to do at the moment is that we are able to attach two different types of ligands on the surface of a nanoparticle. One is a ionizable ligand, and other one is a non-ionizable ligand. And we see a lot of impact of this kind of nanoparticles on bio-nano interactions. So now, it's not 100% positively charged nanoparticle. it has some negative charge which will provide some repulsions as well. So we are able to play with attractions and repulsions. But as you said, if you want to have multifunctionality, you need to put more ligands, which is a challenge in the surface functionalization area. I agree that. Yeah.
There is one question in the chat box.
Yeah, please.
Regarding the mechanism for nitrophenol reduction using silver gold nanoparticles, you explained that the gold hydride intermediate formation for catalysis. Is there any experimental evidence?
Experimental evidence. So yeah, people have studied the hydrate transfer dynamics with the help of ultrafast spectroscopy, and they have seen that it is the transfer of hydrate which is happening on the surface of the nanoparticle. I think I can take this. So this such kind of hydrates transfers that people have observed using ultrafast spectroscopy. Yes, there is an experimental evidence. But here the main point is the surface absorption of the reactants. That is the key, and that is what we are trying to explore. But the mechanism is well understood. It is the hydrate ion transfer through series of intermediates. But such hydrate ion transfers have been studied using ultrafast spectroscopy.
One more doubt I have.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir, for the excellent talk.
Thank
Sir, most of the cases you have used gold as the central core. Okay. So have you tried? Have you tried any other metal other than the gold?
So we have tried with silver nanoparticle. So this is because gold and silver are more or less similar, but it is much easier to work with gold when compared to silver because of the fact of oxidation. But we are able to extend this to silver nanoparticle. And now we are trying to work with copper and some aluminum nanoparticle, but it's not that straightforward, but we are trying with that. But definitely with silver it works. Whatever is working with gold is working well with silver as well.
Okay, did you try any alloy for this?
We have not tried we have not tried alloy, but you can definitely try that, because this whatever we have shown is a core independent phenomena. It is a surface driven phenomena. So ideally one can extrapolate it to different kind of structures like heterostructures, or alloyed materials or something like that. You can try to do that, but we have not tried it.
Sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir, first of all, thank you for the wonderful talk.
Sir,
I have a doubt. Usually you incorporate the groups having non-covalent interactions.
Yes.
So by varying this ligands, just facilitates this light absorption. That is the wavelength of light absorbed. For any other role for this ligands?
So the ligand basically doesn't affect in a major way the light absorbing property of the nanoparticle. But yes, there are some ligands which can help, which can decide that. For example, the binding group that people use, it has been known that, for example, if you are using a sulfide group or a amine group, that can have an impact on the crystal structure of the nanoparticle, which directly can affect their light absorbing property. So in that sense, there can be a effect, but it is not a major effect. The major effect of light absorbing properties of nanoparticle is dependent on their core properties, as I have shown in the beginning. So the ligand, so that is why for all our chemistry, we stick with a thiol chemistry, which is the much understood chemistry that we know. So that is why for all our ligands, we go for the thiol bond, so that the impact of this ligand will be same for different ligands. And what we are trying to vary is the terminal group, which will bring various non-covalent interactions into action. So, so as far as I know, these ligands cannot influence too much, but there are reports where this binding group can influence the light harvesting properties of nanomaterials.
Sir, one more doubt.
Sure.
Sir, how could you manage the synthetic procedure? Because you are.
Yeah, it was so to make a singly charged, homogeneously charged nanoparticle. I would say, it is much more. It is very straightforward. You can do a place exchange reaction. So how we do is we first make a amine functionalized nanoparticles, and then we try to place exchange it with a thiolated nanoparticle. So it is well known that thiols are having more affinity to gold when compared to amine. So that kind of place exchange will be very easy. But if you want to functionalize, as I was talking to Professor Pradeep, if you want to functionalize multiple ligands, that is where the challenge is. And we were able to optimize this with two types of ligands. where we play with the solubility of the ligand. So what we do is we control the solubility of two ligands in such a way that the more soluble ligand will be absorbed more on the surface of the nanoparticle. Like that, we control the ratio between plus and minus ligands on the surface. So to make a homogeneously charged nanoparticle, it is very easy, I would say, but to make heterogeneously charged nanoparticle, there is a challenge. So there you have to play with the solubility, you have to play with the kinetics, the temperature, and all those parameters will affect the ligand exchange process.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, Pramod. Very nice work.
Hi, Samir. Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, indeed. We had also started some work in 2017, one of the first papers on zinc selenide CDS.
Yeah, yes.
For some of the halogenated organics we had reduced and also made some CC coupling. But okay, so yeah, it's very interesting indeed. But you know, I, not being an organic chemist, could take it further. We had a few papers only.
Yeah.
Now, what I was very keen on was knowing how do you calculate the turnover number per nanoparticle?
So here, that we have done for metal nanoparticles.
Yeah.
So what we do is we know the concentration of the nanoparticle that we are taking.
And that is by absorption or by weight?
Yeah, so it is by multiple techniques. One, we take the absorption, and then we take the TEM, and then we digest the nanoparticle to know what is the amount of gold ions. And by the knowledge of the size of the nanoparticle, now we can calculate how many nanoparticles, how many gold atoms will be there in a single nanoparticle. And from that, we calculate the concentration of the nanoparticle.
All right.
This turnover frequency becomes a straightforward calculation.
Right.
The trick here is to estimate the concentration of nanoparticles.
Yeah. So a related thing is that would it depend on per nanoparticle or would it depend on per ligand?
So here we have calculated with respect to nanoparticle, but you are right. We can also estimate it with respect to ligand because we know what is the number of ligands. So for example, so the size that we are working is something like 10 nanometers. So there will be something like 600 to 700 ligands on the surface, or like I would say 500. I will not go to 600. I think 500 is a decent number. So yeah, so I can convert it into per ligand as well. Yeah. But then the catalyst here is the nanoparticle. That is why we represent it in terms of nanoparticle.
Yeah, because you know, we did something with just gold nanoparticles, and what we actually found was that you know, it depends on the absorption cross section. One thing,
yes,
how much we can absorb, and it also depends on per gold atom, not per.
gold. Okay.
So it's all when you compare across different sizes.
Yeah.
It just gets normalized to the number of gold atoms.
Number
so
of gold
is actually key that, you know, it may be just the number of ligands over here.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's an interesting point. I will check that. If we have only worked with one size of nanoparticle here, maybe it is a good thing to check size effect and try to normalize it with respect to ligands.
Connecting to Samir's talk, it might be depending on the number of surface gold atoms.
Active gold atoms.
No, Pradeep. So Pradeep, this is more about absorption cross section. So the more the number of gold atoms, the more is your absorption cross section. And no, this was not on the 2D sheets.
Yeah.
This was another work we did with gold nanoparticles.
Yeah.
Actually, cadmium selenide tipped with gold nanoparticles. So it really depends on the number of gold nanoparticles.
Yeah.
Atoms
Here it is basically the hot electron chemistry, which directly depends on the absorption cross section.
Absorption cross section.
But it is interesting, but I will definitely have a look.
But very nice work. Thanks.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you very much.